Hello. Today I wanted to continue with the Bhagavad Gita series. I thought, first of all, I'd point out I'm reading verses from the Bhagavad Gita as I go along in this series, and you might be curious as to which version I'm using. Well, I'm using the version that I made myself, which is the Song of the Blessed One. And this is a copy of the book. These days the book it's available on Amazon if you wanted the hard copy with the commentary and with some other material. Unfortunately, because of some difficulties with working out the tax code rules that CreateSpace has, I don't actually make any money if you buy one there. Not that I ever made a lot of money from it anyways, because the CreateSpace is not a fantastic way to generate income from a book. But it is available on Amazon, Song of the Blessed One, if you like it. But more importantly, you can get it for free if you don't want it in a book format. If you want it in an electronic format, you check out the links at the bottom here, and you'll find in the links to the Mystery School Facebook page, or in the link to the Mystery School web page, which is kind of out of date now, but if you look in the library section there, in either of those cases, you'll find a link to the entire text free online, because this is the sort of thing that I like to make free when I can. I need to make a living off of this teaching, but I always want, especially something like a core text like this, to be available when it can be, right? And then there's also these videos, which are also free. Now, if you want to be supporting of the work I do here, then by all means, please feel free to send me a message, especially if you want to work on a more personal level with the spiritual teaching as teacher and student. But if you also just felt like giving a donation, you'd be very welcome to. And so when is a Zippo not a Zippo? That's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. This is the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verses 29 and 30. Some will see this essence as awe-inspiring. They will describe it as a mystery. It is likewise awe-inspiring to one who hears of this mystery. For any who hear of it, it will be beyond all comprehension. The essential self is eternal and cannot be killed. It is the mystery. It is within all beings, scion of Bharata. Thus, you need not grieve for any living things. So in this chapter, Krishna is trying to convince Arjuna of the necessity for him to fulfill his nature, to fulfill his will, and fight at the battle of Kurukshetra. And he had just been talking about this thing of which there is no beginning, has no form, gains form in the middle, and then is destroyed and becomes formless again. And all things are like this. So he's talking about the arising of a form from emptiness, or from chaos, if you prefer. This is, if you watch my rune videos, there's a similar principle going on in the runic videos about the emergence of structure from chaos, from the weird, from that which is beyond form, beyond matter. And this is a recurring theme in all mystical teachings, right? The Buddhists phrase it in the context of emptiness. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is the wholeness, right? The Brahman. So people who see this essence will see it as awe-inspiring. It'll blow you away. And this is not just saying like, it'll be very impressive, trust us on this. It will be incomprehensible, because it is that level of reality that is beyond any kind of capacity for the intellect to describe it. It is likewise awe-inspiring to one who hears of this mystery, because they will describe it as a mystery, because there's no way to describe it other than as a mystery, or rather any attempt to do so is going to be flawed. So anything I say about it, about that state beyond form, that to see that state, not just to hear about it, to see it, implies the state of, at the very least, a state of dhyana, a state of a satori, what they could say in Zen, where you have a momentary experience of enlightenment, and to really see it is the state of full enlightenment. But other people will hear of it. They will receive a glimpse of it within form. So this is what happens, for example, well, it's what's happening in the Bhagavad Gita, for example, to Arjuna right now, because Krishna is that enlightenment, and he is giving Arjuna a glimpse of it. And it's what happens anytime somebody sits in satsang with a teacher, with an enlightened teacher. It's what happens in initiation, when there's that transmission of enlightened energy from the teacher to the student. It's what happens in devotion, when a spiritual student, a devotee, expresses a state of spiritual openness towards a deity, towards a guru, towards a supreme state that is beyond form even, and you get that glimpse, you hear it. It will be awe-inspiring even to someone who only receives a partial understanding of it, because it will be beyond all comprehension. So, but why is it beyond all comprehension? Well, if the formative world at some place does not exist, all intellect is a part of that formative world. There's no way to get there from here. You can't get there from here. That is, right? Within the confines of the mind, that which is beyond, it's a barrier, an abyss that human reason can't penetrate. And you can understand this with a process, and there are many ways to do this, right? I mean, there's things like trance and such, but with a process of an experience of an object, right? So let's say a lighter, right? You could ask yourself, what is the lighter, right? Intellectually, trying to understand the concept of lighterness, you could try to define a lighter. Well, it's something that fulfills the form of lighting a flame if it has enough fuel in it. But if you ask, okay, well, what is that? You know, then you look into it and say, well, it has these mechanical parts. Okay, well, what are those? And at some point in those definitions, right, there are pieces made out of these chemicals. Okay, they're made out of these atoms of this element. Okay, but what is that element, right? You have to get at some point to the root of the mind experience where all your definitions end up becoming negative. They're not a positive definition. If you ask, what is an apple? You know, you show someone an apple, you say, what is an apple, right? And they keep trying to get at a definition of them, and you keep bringing them down that next layer of the onion. Sooner or later, the only answer you have to what is an apple is it's not an orange, you know, or it's red. That means it's not blue. It's a vegetable. That means it's not an animal, right? Everything that we define with the mind, and this is why symbolically in the West, the mind was always defined as a sword. It cuts. It separates things into two. That says, this is A, and A means not B. And so those are the divisions. And it's only within that form of dividing that the mind can label, and it can understand. So the mind process requires a trick. It never gets to a fundamental understanding of anything. It only can define things by separating them from other concepts. There's never a holistic understanding that happens there. Now, if you try to focus on that holistic understanding, sometimes to do this, you have to go through that mental process of not this, not this, not this. Then at the end of it, you realize that you can never actually understand what a lighter or an apple or anything else is. And the effect of this, if you get to an actual understanding of this, is an experience of awe, an experience of wonder at that you're holding something, you're touching something, you're experiencing something, and you can never actually wrap the brain around it. So you're forced out of the brain and into this experience of connectedness. And you realize that you can't understand this, you can't understand this, you can't understand this, you can't understand anything. You can label things, you can identify them through a comparative process, but you can't understand anything for what it is. And that means that everything, you can only connect to it by uniting the divided, by uniting that which is separate and understanding those connections. So this is the mystery. The mystery is I don't want to say necessarily a force, I want to say that it's a uniting, overarching level at which everything is a part of it. And so this is Brahman, this is the body of Nuit. Depending on what tradition you're from, there's many ways of describing it, right? This is the Tao. People call it by a lot of different names, but they're all kind of in agreement that actually that which is called the Tao is not the Tao, because as soon as you can say this is the Tao, then you're again entering into a labeling process, right? So it's beyond comprehension. But we have an experiential feeling of it that we can approach if we are guided to that feeling through a process of observation, which is the yoga that is going on in this part of the book, the Buddha yoga. And so we can find and feel this in the heart level, you could say. We know that it exists everywhere, but it can't be described by any non-essential quality. So this great unknown, this great unknowable, it fills us up with awe, because it's something beyond all the limits of the body. And if you hear of it, it fills you with awe. And if you see it, it is absolutely awe-inspiring. And what this means from Krishna's point of view is that the essential reality, our true reality at this higher level, is eternal, and it cannot be destroyed. Now, this does still mean that you can be destroyed, and this body can be destroyed, this mind will be destroyed. Everything that people tend to assume is themselves can be destroyed. So you know that there's still no point in grieving for any living thing, because everything that lives is going to be destroyed. It is an inevitable reality. Everything will return to that underlying source sooner or later, to chaos, to Nuit, to Brahman. But it also means that then, if you don't want to only be associated with that part of you that is temporal, if you want to understand that you are something so much more than that, if you want to find the part of you that really is eternal, you have to be willing to get first that what you think of yourself as you is going to die. It's gone. There's no way to avoid that. So don't get into this. If the idea is that you as yourself, as Joe Smith or whatever, is going to keep being Joe Smith, or as Mary Watson, and you're going to get to be Mary Watson forever, that's not going to happen. But there is an eternal reality, and you can shave off. You can not really lose, but transcend and become something so much bigger than this identity that you see of as yourself. And in that transcendent state, there is eternity. because it's something that is never born and never dies. That's what is worth pursuing. And once you pursue it from that, when you connect to that level that is beyond the mental understanding, that Tao, then a lot of the problems that you associate with not being at that level, the problems of your association of yourself as you imagine yourself right now, become pretty irrelevant. We'll continue with this later on.